Today we're in my studio and our slabs have dried out to the leather hard stage, and we're gonna go ahead and put them together. I had to take them home because it was getting a little late at school and they weren't quite ready yet. So we're gonna put them together in my studio here. Should be fun.
For a couple days, and what we're shooting for is something leather hard. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of these out here, and we'll go ahead and take a look at them. All right, so again, what we're looking for is a leather hard slab, and I think these should be perfect. And what the newspaper did was it absorbed some of the water from your slab. And a leather hard slab, as you can see here, it's still wet clay, but it holds its shape. Even if I turn it around, I'm not supporting it, it's still going to hold its shape and not bend a whole lot. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. If you pick yours up and it's still really floppy, you need to let it dry out a little bit. Before we begin an assembly, I'm just going to do a little dry fit up, just to make sure all the pieces fit. So I have my two sides, two short sides, two long sides. There's many ways you can put these together as long as you have an idea in your head how they're going to work. So I'm going to have this shorter side be on top of the longer side, so it's going to fit like this. You could also put that inside of these two, or you could do what we call follow the leader and put them like this to make your box. But as long as you know what you're doing, you can put it together multiple ways. And so mine fits up pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with that. Put it together, we're going to have to do a scoring and a slipping to get this to work. So the way I'm going to do this is, I'm going to just keep in my head of how that's going to fit together. And I'm going to score using a needle tool and use clay slip. That's clay that's been wetted down to hold these together. So that piece is going to go there, for example. And the trick to this is just to make sure that you have it scored up really, really well. If it isn't scored up really well, it's going to fall apart. So take a little bit of extra time and cut into it really deeply. So I'm going to use my needle tool here, and I'm going to cross hatch and carve into it really deeply here. Okay, and one last time, again, get those edges really good and really score deeply. I'm going to just hold this up here so you can see what that looks like. And make sure you're going really deep in there. Alright, one thing that's really important to mention is that when you attach your slabs together, that they be the same dryness. Now if they're not, well, hopefully they are, because you rolled them the same day and you rolled them at the same time and you let them dry out evenly. But if they aren't, like let's say you missed a class and you had to roll, whatever the reason is, if one's drier than the other, what you can do is cover up the drier ones and then let the ones that are wet or dry stiffen up a little bit. But if you attach them at all different drynesses, they're going to shrink at different rates and they may warp or crack later on. So try to put them together when they're the same dryness. It'll help you out a lot. Now I'm going to attach these, and when I put them together, get this out of the way, I like to do it sitting up. I found that if I work vertically like this, it has more support to it. So I'm gonna make sure the edges are as straight as possible, and I'm gonna put pressure here together. What I don't want to do is pinch the corners. So I'm gonna put as much surface area of my hands on here to put equal pressure. It's very important. If stuff isn't squishing out your side, then you didn't put enough slip on. You really want that good in there. Again, I'm not pinching this, I'm just pushing the sides together. And I'm going to go ahead and do the next side. And that looks like it needs to be scored a little bit more. just tracing a line here. I'm not cutting into it. Just so I know where to score. I'm just going to give it a little downward pressure and secure that together. I really want to make sure it sticks well, but again, I don't want to be doing anything where I'm just pinching or pushing in a little area. I'm trying to put as much surface area with my hands as possible. Get that locked in. A little wiggle doesn't hurt either. Okay, now before we put on that top, you're going to see that there's a little edge right here that's a little higher and a little uneven. So that's not going to fit up very good. I'm going to let this dry for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to use my Sureform to straighten that out before I add on the top. I'm going to be using a Sureform tool to straighten this up. It was a little bit uneven right here, and again, we want really good fit up, and we want to do it right the first time so we don't have to mess around trying to fix it up later. So I'm going to use this Sureform tool. Remember, this is a one-way tool. It only works in one direction. You can kind of tell by the teeth which way the teeth are going, which way you should do it. So unless someone flipped the head on it around, it should be a pull tool. So I'm just going to go ahead and flatten this out till these edges meet. While it's upside down, we might as well push this down a little bit, make sure it's locked in really good. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim some of this excess clay away. Again, the reason why we had excess clay, if you remember from when we rolled out the slabs, is in case we make a little mistake or it's not quite square, we have some wiggle room there. We don't need it. I'm not going to go all the way up to that because I'm going to Sureform that off later. I'm just going to get a lot of it off here. And so I'm going to go near it, but not all the way up to it. I'm going to go ahead and put the bag down, put it inside of it so I don't dent it. And again, I'm going to seal that up for next class. So I'm going to make sure there's no air bubbles, or I'm sorry, air pockets in the bag. All right, see you next class.